Power on.
The following is a presentation of the Sovryn Tech podcast feed.
Woo! The man of tomorrow is here. Not only was I here, but on Friday, was that the 4th? Let me take a quick look here because the calendar actually makes sense on this taskbar, unlike Windows 11. Yeah, that was March 4th, 2022. I was on Declare Your Independence with, of course, the one and only Ernie Hancock. And always a pleasure to be on with him. You know, Ernie's just one of those, like, old school, and I say that with reverence. I think of myself as old school. So, you know, I'm not saying that as in, like, out of touch. No, the exact opposite. Ernie is just one of those old school street activists that, you know, like, he and I have just always had, a kinship, which developed into a friendship. And yeah, he's just, he's one of us, right? Total nerd, but a guy that gets personal freedom and all that jazz and, about getting things done. I just love this guy. And, he's been in the game long before me. And I don't just mean in podcasting, but like his again, he's a superstar in activism and, really a trendsetter in so many ways. This year, or in 2021 and into 2022, Ernie and I have been working together a lot on things. Of course, I was featured in the Freedom's Phoenix newspaper, not newsletter, but full print newspaper that's been around. And I've heard some pretty amazing stories of people that encountered that and, how it just, hit them, in all the right ways. But anyway, if you're interested in hearing the article I wrote for that, it is in the Sovryn Tech Feed, and you like the audio version of it, and it's Pioneers of the Private Digital Frontier. But that's not what we're here to talk about. But we are certainly talking about being pioneers of the private, digital frontier. What we're here to talk about, I got asked by Ernie last week, just days ahead of when I did appear, to appear on his show. And, when Ernie's like, hey, I need you to, I need you to look into this. Tell me what you think, give me your review, Stallion. Like, let me know what you got. And what he was having me essentially like review, he's like, okay, I'm having all these guys on to talk about smartphones and, we're looking at smartphones. How far along are we on, smartphones being more privacy centric, being more, shall we say, decentralized, or have the ability to withstand, shall we say, digital oppression by the man, all of this. And so we actually had some guests on from some of these projects. And, he's like, well, come on and give us your review of, what you think of these things, where smartphones are at, as far as all this goes and give us the deal. So I went on and I did my research and, I looked into things, and you'll certainly hear me discuss all of that in this episode because I'm putting the episode that Ernie and I recorded on Friday. I am putting that into the Sovryn Tech Feed. Okay. But I'm going to give you something. I want to expand a little bit and perhaps bring a little more clarity in this opening exclusive intro for Sovryn Tech listeners. So as you'll hear me say, as soon as the show opens up with Ernie, the idea of a private or privacy-centric smartphone, like that's an oxymoron. In a billion ways that doesn't really exist, even if you go with ultimately what I recommended at the end of the episode. Still, like privacy and smartphones, essentially privacy and connecting to cell towers is like, no, like those two things just really do not equate unless, you're setting up a smartphone that is not attached to your identity. So you can have a degree of pseudonymity, perhaps not so much anonymity. I mean, remember, with Dark Android, my recommendation with Dark Android for years was getting a Nexus 7 and Again, no SIM card because there's no security in SIM cards. Getting a Nexus 7 and like tricking that out with, say, at the time it would have been more Lineage OS, even though now there are more even more privacy centric ROMs or security centric ROMs. Like Graphene OS or Calyx OS or that sort of thing. Not that you can. I don't think that those are necessarily available for a Nexus 7. Maybe they are. Calyx might be. Anyway, I don't want to get lost in the point. But my point is that with Dark Android, this opinion has not changed. I have always said you are not going to get privacy / hardcore security. And those are kissing cousins, right? As we always say on Sovryn Tech. You're not going to get it with a smartphone. Not fucking possible. End of line. And that's really just even speaking more so from a software perspective. Yeah, some hardware certainly there as well. And obviously I was saying all of that before eSIMs were even a thing. That's a whole other conversation. Okay. But now from a hardware perspective, and this is another point that I bring up, in the episode with Ernie, because Ernie rightfully brings up the concern often enough on his show that, it's made in China, and so it's essentially, made with spyware or malware, built into the hardware itself. And I'm not going to say that he's wrong, but the point that I wanted to get abundantly clear was you cannot effectively buy hardware today, even if it's like open source hardware. You are not going to buy hardware that is not in some way made in China. It's just not possible. Okay, maybe you could get a Samsung that has an Exynos chip from South Korea or something like that. Not that that's necessarily going to do you any better. Hello, Samsung leak, right? That put however many Galaxy phones at risk now. Every single one of them. Or maybe like the Fairphone. I forget where they source, their stuff from. But effectively, again, even open source hardware. And open source hardware theoretically should solve this problem. Theoretically, you just get over it. You're going to, and I'm not saying that to Ernie. I'm just saying it to the world. Get over it. You're going to have hardware from China. Okay. If you have a modern computing device. So any kind of communication solution that we're going to talk about, like the hardware is what it is. Let's just, we just got to be clear on that. Now, Ernie and I had a conversation for about an hour and a half. I was going over a lot of the projects, and they're mainly Android or Android-based projects, okay, that are trying to be uncensorable or are trying to be more privacy-centric or trying to be more secure. De-Googled is the big word going around right now. And I spend the whole time explaining, and you can listen to it, I'm not going to rehash it here. I spend the whole time explaining how 99% of these projects are full of shit. Like, they are not de-Googled. Maybe to some degree because they might not use the Play Store, but they're probably still using MicroG, or they're doing this or that, or they're using the Aurora Store, which is still the Google Play Store, just an open source front end for it. So, and look, folks, it is what it is. Okay, I'm not going to rehash it here. So really, I called bullshit on all of these projects. Now, I called bullshit on them, and this is what I want to bring clarity to. I called bullshit on them based upon what I always call bullshit on, what I've called bullshit on Sovryn Tech for the past 10 years, is their marketing speak. That's what I'm calling bullshit on. I am not saying that I don't know what was the Clear phone. Is that one of them, or whatever these things? Look, like I said during the episode, a lot of these people have their hearts in the right place. Okay. I get what they're trying to do. I get that they're trying to build things that don't exist yet. And they're essentially using these early projects to fund, future projects, right? To fund the development of, more decentralized or distributed networks and whatever else, okay, or distributed storage, whatever that happens to be. I understand very well what they're trying to do. I do not necessarily disparage in the abstract, what they're trying to do. but I very much feel like they are making promises that their present hardware cannot keep. Okay, their smartphones are, writing checks that the hardware can't cash. Okay, and you'll hear me explain more of that in the episode with Ernie. Okay, as to why that is true. But let me be clear here. Okay, I am not saying there aren't markets for what they are putting out there. Okay. Yes. Is it a fine and dandy thing to have a smartphone that does not have, Google's services and software pre-installed? Yeah, sure. It's a fine thing. And still be Android based? Yeah, sure. That's a fine thing. Okay. There are people where that is a real solution for them, where they just don't want to be in the duopoly. Okay. And they don't want Google's shit just baked right in. I get that. Okay. There's a market for that sort of person. There are people who, they're I don't want to necessarily say older people, but there are people who, let's just say, less tech savvy. Okay. And I'm not knocking them at all. There are people who are, a lot of them are in my audience. I love you. There are people who are less tech savvy, who just hate Google, hate Facebook, hate Apple, hate the Sinister Six, right? They hate all the tech giants. And so they just want to, as best as possible, get away from their data collection. Okay. Then, again, I argue in the episode that you're not totally getting away from it, but are you making it more expensive for the Sinister Six? Yes, in purchasing these smartphones. And that's great. But again, the marketing around it is that this is making you uncensorable. This is getting you, perhaps the marketing is even not just getting away from the tech giants, but ultimately getting away from, from the government. And none of that, that shit is just, no, these smartphones cannot do that. And I will say it here and now because I don't exactly express this in the episode. For the money that they're charging for these abilities that, again, don't even live up to the hype, is outrageous. You are paying on average at least 5x what you should be paying for smartphones that do this kind of job. Okay. You should not be spending $500. You sure as fuck shouldn't be spending $1,200, for a de-Googled smartphone. That's outrageous. One of the projects that I am, more appreciative of is Ghost Phone, which if you go to the Vanu podcast, you go to, the Liberty Under Attack store or whatever, Shane sells Ghost Phones there. And really all they are Pixel 3s, I think, with Calyx OS on them. That's a fine option, and for a far better price, by the way. And you're actually getting great hardware with Google's, Pixel series, which I consider to be generally the best smartphones on the market as far as bang for buck and hardware that you're getting overall, and as well as the openness to developers, which all great things. Okay. So, if you're really wanting to get into this, that's direct and in a cost-effective way, the Ghost Phone is a great direction to go. Okay. If you need that Android, if you need that Android base. Now, the best thing you can do is, get your latest, get a Pixel 6 and put Graphene OS on it. Now, Graphene OS will only support, and the reason I'm saying get the latest Pixel line is Graphene OS will only continue support for the latest, or for as long as Google supports, software for a Pixel phone, because, they build off of, the Pixel OS image. Okay. Which is fine. But Graphene OS is the best direction to go. Still better than Calyx OS. And that's really what you'd want to do. And then you could use something like stealth.link, because the Pixel 6 particularly has an eSIM in it. And you can get your phone number and all that, and have a degree of pseudonymity. All great options there. Okay. So in my opinion, if you'll hear Ernie and I talk about a bunch of different Android phones that are supposed to be de-Googled and all this crap. And again, which they're really not, or at least a lot of them really aren't. And so my recommendation, though, would be to either, if you need to go more cost effective with an Android phone, you want to go with a Ghost phone, or if you want to, and the guy doing, I mean, I know him, like Jamin Biconic is, Jamin's great. Okay. He's like just a guy who, I mean, listen to him on podcasts and you'll hear a lot of synergy between he and I. And, as far as like our philosophies, towards technology. So, Ghost phones, I think are a totally valid option. But if you want to go the full distance, yeah, and you have the spare change, grab a Pixel 6. You don't need a 6 Pro unless you really want that for some reason. Grab a Pixel 6 and get Graphene OS on it. Because that's the option that, does not have micro G. In fact, well, I'll tell you, I was actually really pleased to see this. Graphene OS put in the Google Play Store of all things, both their camera app, which is, a privacy-centric camera app, and their lockdown PDF viewer. I mean, round of applause for Graphene OS, to do that. I mean, if anything, it's just getting their name out there, and it did get them some more press. So I applaud that. I think that's wonderful. I particularly did, I did install their secure PDF viewer. So those options are out there if you want to see what, if you want a little preview of some of what you may interact with on Graphene OS. But that's the direction you'd have to go. Now, the reason why a lot of people don't want to go to Graphene OS and why a lot of these, I want to rip on them so hard. And I don't mean Ghost Phone. I mean all the other guys. Okay. I want to rip on them so hard because, again, I don't like what they're selling here. Okay. But the reason that they're not offering phones with Graphene OS, which is the best option for Android compatible phones, is simply, they know that the average person they're going to get to buy their bullshit phone wants, apps that are in the Google Play Store. And Graphene OS is not going to offer that. I mean, Graphene OS can do like the sandbox version of the Google Play Store and all that. And, that's interesting. But most people just aren't going to go through the level of technicality needed to make this shit happen on Graphene OS. And in one sense, I'm like, well, the point of getting on Graphene OS is fucking getting away from the duopoly. So why go through that hassle anyway? Anyway, if you're tech savvy, go with Graphene OS. There. Have I made that clear? And look, you can go for a Pixel 5a. It doesn't, whatever. And that'll last you a good while. Cause I mean, even that phone's barely a year old. But that's it, is they know that people want access to whatever bullshit, like, I don't know, Snapchat, Facebook, whatever it happens to be. Even though some of this stuff you can now very easily run through, a web browser and still have either full-featured or fairly full-featured experience. But I mean, the reality is you can't use these services, app or not, really. And, say you have a private anti-censorship or censorship-resistant phone. It's just not true. So my ultimate response, my ultimate answer to what was being discussed, to what, as far as, okay, what phone should people, if you're in, say, a community that, wants secure communications, still wants to be able to call, as in phone call, real phone call grandma or send text messages, maybe get access to Telegram and whatever else. But you want to have something that actually is censorship resistant, and, is not only censorship resistant, but also isn't reliant upon, or can ultimately not be reliant upon the telcos. And, because we talk about how AT&T shut down 3G and other things. You've got to go with a Linux phone. And that's the end of the story. There it is. That's it. It's over. Get a Linux phone. Don't bother with the Android alternatives. Get a Linux phone. And I get into a bunch of other things. I justify, this statement throughout the episode. So I want you to listen to that to be able to. So, but let me be clear here about, the amazing, where we're at with Linux phones and why I think it's time for this. So a major argument that I make is that while yes, a Linux phone is going to cost you $500 at least, because the hardware is so open and because there's such an amazing maker/developer community around Linux phones, particularly the PinePhone or the PinePhone Pro from Pine64, you're getting a lot more than a phone, and you're getting something that is going to have essentially a support community, for years to come. So the PinePhone Pro was my main recommendation. Now, I kept bringing it up, the issues with supply chain, because there are features, even getting your hands on a PinePhone Pro right now can be a challenge. And there are hardware features that you might not be able to access right now either. One of those being that you can get an add-on card, which allows a PinePhone to do LoRa communications, okay, which we got into in a previous episode on Declare Your Independence back, I want to say this is in November or December of 2021, where that is a technology that I am testing out. And you would be able to access, other devices on a network that are all using LoRa within a certain radius. This is a wonderful thing because it makes... It's not, you're not only concerned around, because, okay, for example, like with Android, you can run the Briar app, right? Now, the Briar app can use the big bad internet too, of course, but Briar's, its top trick is it can just use the radios built into your smartphone to communicate with other smartphones. It does not need the telcos. It does not need, the big bad internet. That's the right move. The issue is those radios built into your little smartphone do not have great range. They have range, just not great range. Okay. And yeah, you could do some hopping and whatever else perhaps. But range is a very real issue. LoRa solves, that's the right direction that Briar is going in, which is why I've been supportive of it since the thing was in beta. I was talking about it way ahead of anybody else. Years ahead of anybody else. But so Briar's the right direction. LoRa is the hardware implementation that we really need to bring that dream that Briar was bringing to reality, to bring it more into reality, where now you have range. Now you have real range, and you can do repeaters and you can do other things. Okay. So, and you're going to be hard pressed. Maybe you could connect a device to, like the OTG port, the USB-C port on your average smartphone, to where you could take advantage of LoRa, but nobody's developing that yet. Okay, there just isn't a community when it comes to Android around that sort of thing. So the Linux phone, particularly the PinePhone Pro, becomes a wonderful option because you can add on this hardware and it's officially supported. And in fact, most apps that can even work with a lot of, or that take advantage of the hardware around LoRa are also, not uninterestingly, a lot of them are Linux based. That aside, because a lot of people are doing it with Raspberry Pis to do, whatever kind of hobby projects, but, we're taking hobby projects and turning them into survival projects, like life or death communication projects, right? And that's the plan. And it's something that I'm actually working on developing right now. But anyway, so the PinePhone Pro, and this is what I was getting to. Yes, there's hardware you can add on. In fact, I love this. You can actually get a hardware keyboard to attach to the PinePhone Pro, turn it into a clamshell device, which I love that, but have hardware buttons. We all love hardware switches, right? On Sovryn Tech, we always say the world is perishing from a lack of hardware switches. Of course, the PinePhone Pro already has hardware switches that and they're hard switches. They're not soft switches. They're hard switches that cut off the fucking wire to the radios, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, 4G, whatever, on the device. You want that. They've got it. Okay. But you can also add on your own keyboard. Now, the beauty of also adding on your own keyboard, aside from aesthetic of how great it is to have an actual hardware keyboard on a smartphone again, which, believe me, I've missed for the past 5, 6, 7 years. The beauty is, because it is essentially a full-on Linux, distro, it's running Manjaro. Because it's full-on Linux, you can connect, your PinePhone to a dock similar to like Samsung decks. Okay, you can connect it to a dock, and you can, and I talk about this in the episode, and you can connect, a monitor. You can connect keyboard, mouse, all kind, even external hard drives. You can connect all kinds of shit to it, and you have your computer in your pocket. Right? Granted, you got to connect it to external shit, but you can do that, and you have a full-on desktop experience. Granted, there'd be some limitations on what software you can install, because not all Linux software has been coded to where it can work on an ARM processor, which is what you're dealing with, but a lot of it has, and if you've experimented at all with, for example, like a Raspberry Pi running Linux, whether it's Ubuntu or Raspberry Pi OS or whatever, which, by the way, the 64-bit version, the official full-on out-of-beta 64-bit version of Raspberry Pi OS is out there now, and it screams. I love it. But if you've messed with that, you have an idea of what software you can and cannot install. Okay? But oh yes, you can put Telegram on there. You can put Audacity on there. You can put all kinds of things. I mean, this becomes... So what I'm getting at here is for $500 plus, you are not just getting a Linux phone. You are getting a full-on computer, okay, that can become a desktop computer that has constant LTE connection if you want it to be constant. Again, hardware switch can kill it all. And, you've got a computer that has the internet at all times. So you're buying a computer, you hear me? Like this is what makes it so great, is that this is something that can go the distance for you. It's not just a shitty smartphone that you're going to throw away in a year or two. It is a full-on computer, and you can treat it as such. So the Linux phone it's not only a matter of, being censorship resistant, about, being more privacy centric and more secure. It's also a matter of value, that you are getting maximum value out of the money you spend into the smartphone, because again, it is more than a smartphone. It is a computer, and it is a computer that will likely be supported. It's all open source. So if you're savvy enough, you could support it yourself, for many, 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 many years. All right. So it's not something that just has to be thrown away. Even if you stopped using it as a phone, you could use it as a project computer forever, or arguably forever. Obviously, no hardware lasts forever. And again, there are so many other, devices. I mean, Pine 64 has like a range of hardware that they support and that they keep putting out there, and like the accessories and everything that you can plug into this thing. It's awesome. Like, it's amazing what you can do. The LoRa is just the tip of the iceberg. Okay. So the PinePhone particularly, there are other Linux phones, but the PinePhone is the one that gets me really excited, especially the PinePhone Pro. But this is the way to go. Again, the apps, if you're concerned about apps, not having, okay, sure. If you want to be able to access Snapchat or your banking app or, other stuff like that. All right. Linux phones are not for you. You're still in the system. I understand. Like, believe me, I understand. I have a smartphone that wholly exists to interact with businesses and the world at large. Okay. But if you are wanting, a smartphone that has SMS, phone calls, yes, you could do Telegram. You could do a lot of things just through progressive web apps. You could still get access to a ton of apps just through the mobile web browser installed. Okay. Then, this one's for you. They say this bud's for you. Well, this Linux phone is for you, and it's ready. We got a long way to go. We got a long way to go before the Linux phone becomes something that, especially the non-tech savvy, could really be comfortable, could be 100% comfortable with, or, that might have more of a app ecosystem of some kind around it. We have a long way to go on that. But if you are looking to have that, we used to, and this is something I need to bring back into Sovryn Tech. We used to do threat levels. Okay. Like, you had threat level 1. Threat level 1 is just that run-of-the-mill hacker who's just waiting for somebody to fuck up at the airport or at Starbucks or something like that. Okay. No hacker is run-of-the-mill. You're an exceptional person if you're not just a script kiddie, but you get my point. So that's threat level 1. The Linux phone is going to thwart that, or is going to do its level best of any smartphone at thwarting that. Threat level 2 is when you get into like other tech giants, other businesses, like more corporate or industrial espionage. A Linux smartphone is going to do very well as any phone can, against threat level 2. In fact, actually do better than most smartphones, because it's not going to give your data to even anybody in the duopoly. You're not going to give your data to Microsoft, to Apple, or Google. Okay. As to where if you're using an iPhone or an Android phone, there's a good bet you're going to give to either or of those. All right. And then there's threat level 3, which is nation states. Okay. A Linux phone, I think, is your best shot against nation states, without, giving your data to, at the same time, to Google or Apple. So if you're the type that's particularly concerned about threat level 3, Linux phone is your best shot if you want a smartphone. I mean, the best thing to do is just not to have a fucking smartphone, especially when it comes to privacy. Like I said, those things, they're oil and water, by design. But, your best shot against threat level 3 is still the Linux phone. Threat level 4, of course, was the last threat level, and that was those were threats on a, shall we say, a more cosmic order, and nothing we really have except for maybe radios are going to help you there. So, and I mean, like, little Baofeng radios, but that's a completely different conversation, and a wild one, and a speculative one, and that's why I did it. But anyway, so threat levels 1, 2, and 3, Linux phone's your best shot. There it is. And like most of these other guys, I mean, just understand that you're always making trade-offs when you're dealing, even with, unless it's like Graphene OS, like you're really always making a trade-off. Okay. Now, again, I want to be clear here. As much as some of these people I want to rip on, like, I get it. I get what they're trying to do. I get the funding model they're going for. I might think that that's crap. Like, if you're selling me on these services, develop the services first, then charge me. But it's the other way around. And again, you're charging people 5 to 10x what they should be paying for those phones. And I think that's horseshit. Okay. But I get it that their heart is very much in the right place, and that they are looking at a future that, more that I would be interested in. Ultimately, I'd rather be in a future without smartphones, but there's some debate as to whether that's going to happen. But the problem is, it's not like we're going to a future without smartphones and we're going, back to where computers are the primary affair and you have a lot of control over your computer. We're going towards, we're getting past the smartphone because we're going to, start jamming shit into our brains, or we're doing AR or whatever else. Or we're all wearing AirPods, which fuck that. So I wanted to make sure all of this was really clear. And that's why I did this intro. We'll wrap it up here, and I'll let the episode with me and Ernie, let it ride out. Okay. I won't come back at the end. But again, just to make it quick, unless you're buying something with Graphene OS pre-installed, or you're buying a Linux phone, I mean, you're buying into something that may, be helpful in the future. Okay. Like I said, the Ghost phone is a great, more of a budget option. Okay. That I'm not going to disparage at all, because I really appreciate, and I know that, their heart is, I know what they're trying to do, and it's absolutely the right direction. But, like Clear Phone, Freedom Phone, some of these other ones, no. No. I mean, like, if anything, it's just, maybe it'll make you feel better, about yourself, and that you think you're, not supporting, the duopoly or the tech giants, but it's not really providing you an appreciable difference in experience than the average Android phone, you buy, off the shelf, as it were, or the app, or an Apple smartphone, right? Or, an iPhone. So, okay, that's it. I'm going to wrap this one up. I wanted to make this really clear, and make sure you have like the latest and clearest information. If you have questions, feel free to ask them. Of course, the best place to get access to questions is to go to Sovryn Tech's Patreon, patreon.com/SovrynTech. I do a Wednesday Q&A every single Wednesday. They usually go an hour plus, get to a ton of questions, and, I'm happy to respond to them there, as well as in the Discord channel. And but I'll wrap it up here. I will see all of you on the other side.
It's time for Declare Your Independence with Ernest Hancock.
Believe me when I say we have a difficult time ahead of us. But if we are to be prepared for it, we must first shed our fear of it. I stand here without fear because I remember that I am here not because of the path that lies before me, but because of the path that lies behind me. I remember that for 100 years we have fought these machines. And after a century of war, I remember that which matters most. We are still here! Tonight, let us make them remember we are not afraid!
All day today. Manchester out. You know, it's kind of windy here. We got the dome out there covering, just blowing. We cinched that one down this time because, damn, you know, we learned our lesson. God, man, this mountain out here is so beautiful. We're going to have to start making that part of the, you know, the show. Sometimes I do a remote and we just take the laptop out there and we'll do the thing, interviews, and it's pretty cool, but it's got to be the right temperature. Well, it's not. It's starting to get hot. It was 80-something degrees the last couple of days. I'm like, hell no. 86-something degrees. I'm like, hell no. You know, we talking with a guy in Puerto Vallarta, or outside of Puerto Vallarta in the mountains, and he's wearing a hoodie in Mexico. I go, what the hell? How high are you? You have to be at least 7,000 feet. Are you kidding me? So, well, we're up into New Hampshire again. We had Jeremy Kaufman on this morning, and now we're talking to Dr. Brian Sovryn Tech. You know, okay, we're going to tell you about Brian here. Other than him being purdy and everything, looks like Mr. Clean, all musclified over there. All right, for the past 10 years, Dr. Brian Sovryn has been the host of the popular science and tech podcast Sovryn Tech. With a history of working for multiple tech companies and having been involved in the cyberpunk community since the 1990s, he looks younger than he is, I guess. His work has been featured in The Guardian, Gizmodo, and other major outlets. As an author, his books include the top-selling Android security manual, Dark Android. He is presently a denizen of the freer state of the New Hampshire. And then Donna has his other bio and links and websites and all that kind of stuff. But, okay, we got to get past a couple things here. One, Dark Android, you know, I guess, you know, they're good guys, bad guys, whatever. That's what we're going to be talking about is your phone and your Android and, you know, ghost phones. We're going to talk about, you know, Linux phones and, you know, some other projects, Silent.link, and Android alternatives will be discussed. So this is, you know, ghost phone. We're just looking for a phone. Now, I already have gotten into, you know, let's go ahead and say hello. There you go. All right. I've already gotten into, we went ahead and bought a Rob Braxman X2. We have close friends that just ordered that also and got a Clear phone. And we're going to directly compare. And their IT guy is going to work with us on, you know, taking a looky-see and see what's up. So I'm already kind of, you know, deciding that, you know, we definitely need to get this phone thing done. And they had a unique situation came up. They were out doing protesting, and all of a sudden their AT&T shut off, and it didn't work. They couldn't post anything. Like, what nefarious thing happened there? Well, I talked to their tech guy, and they said when they shut off, because it was an international phone that did roaming and went around, you know, the world, I guess, you know, travelers, and it counts on data, I think, is 4G, and then their voice was on 3G, or it split the two or something. Well, they stopped supporting 3G. And all of a sudden 3G went away, and your phone doesn't work. And I'm going, what the crap is that? You know, that come with a warning or something? I'm tired of, oh, man, they make you get and you can't have and not anymore. So we're looking at, you know, we've talked to several guys. We have some, I tell them, you know, whether I buy it or not, I give you as an option, pimp you on the site, people need to start getting off the phones. They do their own shopping, you know. And talk to you, probably not a scumbag, give you an ad just for a freebie for helping get us informed. But we did the Brax X2, Rob Braxman, because, you know, he promised us a little bit of customer service. Oh, he's got customer service? What's that? Well, the phone is like, you got it, right? Well, there's your customer service, you know. So I'm going, I need somebody to kind of walk us through in case, because Grandpa. So we have the Brax X2. We've been talking with the guys over the years about the Clear phone and their little garden that they're operating in and how that works. It's an interesting concept. We'll see how that goes. So we have some people getting those. Well, there's been a promise of Linux phones since forever. Remember, a decade ago, they're going, oh, yeah, man, you're going to have your Linux laptop and your Linux tablet and your Linux phone. It's all going to sync up, and the man need not touch it. And I go, well, I'm in. When's that going to happen? Tomorrow to never. I mean, I'm like, wow, okay? So then we have things like privacy phones. We talked with John McAfee before his untimely demise, and he was doing the privacy phone. I promised, oh, yeah, Ernie, you get one of the first ones. Well, then he found out that, well, to make it work, you had to phone home to the man or it wouldn't work and stuff. But then you get into ghost phones and all that. So it's time to start making a break. And my thing, I've been telling the audience for a long time, if you're going to be on the list, be on top of the list. It's safer there. I'm going, yeah, here I am. Yep, here I am. I sent what file? I downloaded what? I looked at what? Absolutely. And there's, Ernie, we got him so bad. Yeah, boom. And he's gone. Ernie was here a minute ago. What happened to him? Okay? And I go, that's about ready. Here we go. And one of these things, who do I need to talk to? Dr. Brian Sovryn from Sovryn Tech. Oh, explain it to me. So go ahead and tell us what we're going to talk about and all the goodies you can give me over the hour.
Sure thing, Ernie. So, the first thing I guess I'll say is we're going to cover a lot of phones, and some of which you've talked about, I think are worth visiting. Now, I'll be clear, they're my opinions. My opinions may not reflect the opinions of Declare Your Independence.
I don't have an opinion. It's probably going to be Brian's opinion anyway, whatever.
That's why you got me here. So, I think a really key point to bring up fast is, there are a lot of different use cases and a lot of different demographics that need a lot of different things. Okay. So, a lot of what we're going to cover with Linux phones and Android alternatives and so on, some of those may work for some groups, some may not work for others. And I'll try to be specific, on that and differentiate, when needed. But I think the first thing to really bring up is the very phrase, and I chose this phrase as far as what we're going to bring up. The very phrase of privacy phone is really an oxymoron. It's, I'm not going to say it's impossible, but good luck. As far as this idea of having anything remotely like perfect privacy, and it's not just smartphones. This is also a very serious challenge, even for your desktop PC or your laptop, to have something remotely like privacy and have interconnectivity at the same time. So it's really important to get that out in front. And I like that a lot of these developers and a lot of these personalities that are coming out with, what they would call privacy-centric smartphones, that they're getting used to using the term de-Googled phone, because that's a much safer term to use. To say de-Googled, okay, that's good. It's great that, all right, Google's may not, and I say may not because I don't think there's perfect honesty.
Well,
here.
It may not be, de-Uncle Sam'd or something or whatever, but at least de-Googled or de-Facebooked or something.
Yeah, exactly. So, I can appreciate that they're being more specific in their terms. They're saying that it's de-Googled and that the information's not going to Google. Now, the problem is that's not always true either. I've looked at many de-Googled phones, and no, they're still sending data to Google. And I recognize the tremendous challenge that it is to have a smartphone that operates in a mainstream way for a mainstream user, and not communicate with Google. You brought up McAfee earlier. It was actually kind of humorous when he had his privacy phone. And I don't necessarily mean any disrespect to him, but, because why knock the dead? But the idea that
he'll come back and kick your ass.
Right. Exactly.
I won't put past him.
I'll be joining him in hell, so I don't want to.
Right.
I don't need him, being there ready with the pitchfork. You know what I mean? So anyway, like when he showed off the first picture of his privacy phone, it had the Google Play Store on it. And it's like, what are you talking about being on a privacy phone? Like right there, you're instantly running into a problem. So a lot of these smartphones have gotten to a lot of these like more Android-based smartphones, which you have a lot of different operating systems, not just Android. I mean, they are what you would call like an Android alternative or a custom Android version. You have a lot of these available now, but even those will often, and we'll talk about it, even those will often still communicate with Google services, even though, again, they say they're de-Googled or it's an Android without Google's custom, custom code, essentially, on top. But I want to get into that, and it's really all going to culminate into what is my best recommendation right now to use, especially when we're talking about like Clearphone is, what are they charging for the lowest end? 500 was it, or 400?
Yeah,
Something
no,
like
they the couple that got it, they paid delivered with all the goodies. It was $2,600 for two phones.
Yeah, their high end I know is over 1,000. Yeah,
it was freaking $2,600 for two phones. I mean, damn.
Yeah, I mean, so when you're laying down that kind of money, you want something that's going to,
give me a foot massage. That's what I want.
It should come with a whole spa at that price. Maybe no, but yeah. So I guess we could start off, talking about like real quick, why get away from Google in general? I mean, I think the answer is actually pretty obvious, which is Google is collecting all of this data, and Google has, frankly, really a swinging door to the government. I mean, they just have that open. They are,
it got to be funny when they did, it was, do no evil. That was their big slogan. Yeah. And then finally they're like, we just take that slogan off the wall. They actually literally did it. They just said, we can't have that up there anymore. It's just everybody's making fun of us,
Yeah, exactly. So I guess in that case, at least they were honest for once, which you don't get that often, certainly not in government or Silicon Valley. But right now, I think with a lot of things going on in the world, a lot of the, shall we say, upheaval in varying geographic areas, people are realizing, wow, this data collection could, really be harmful. And there's even more mundane reasons, to do that, or, to be concerned around what your data and metadata that your phone is generating, what's being done with it, of course. So people are recognizing, they don't want to go to Apple because Apple's no better. And really, let's be clear here, Apple is no better than Google. Before anybody thinks that, a lot of people, I've been doing my podcast for 10 years now, and I'll often hear the refrain, or I'll often hear the statement, okay, Google bad, so I'll go and use Apple. And what they'll do is they'll say, yeah, but Apple won't work with government because look at the San Bernardino shooter, from a few years ago. Well, what people forget about that is what Apple said to the FBI when the FBI went to Apple with the San Bernardino shooter's phone and said, hey, will you unlock this for us? They didn't say they wouldn't unlock it. They said, no, look, the way we set this thing up, we couldn't. We would do it for you if we could, but we just can't. So it's not that Apple wasn't willing to unlock the phone for them. Apple's totally willing to hand over whatever data to the government. They have no problem doing that. The problem is just that they couldn't in that case. Okay. Yeah. So, people thinking that somehow Apple is going to protect their data, they're just dead wrong. Like they have no concept of the history of what that company, has done and how they have worked with the government in the past. So Apple is not an answer. Google is not the answer. But Google is, Android itself, which is Google's operating system, which they didn't even develop. They bought that out, to be clear. I don't want anybody to think that Google is somehow some kind of great innovator or some amazing company. They're not.
I did not know that. So Android went on the phones, that what Google bought them?
Correct. Yeah, they bought them. This would have been around 2008 that they ended up buying out Android, and which is very similar to what Microsoft did. Like Microsoft bought DOS. They didn't develop MS-DOS.
They would develop Windows later on. Of course, they'd copy Apple for that. But yeah, I mean, most of these Silicon Valley companies, like they get upheld as like these great innovators. None of them are, not even close.
Yeah, you watched the movie. I remember this. It was called The Pirates of Silicon Valley.
I love that movie.
And
yeah,
it tells you the real story of how this and Bill Gates and that great of geniuses you might be led to believe.
Yeah, not at all, not at all. I mean, just like YouTube. Everybody's like, "Oh, Google's so great for running YouTube." They bought YouTube in 07. They didn't make YouTube. Like these companies don't innovate for anything. But regardless, so Android is based, is a customized version essentially of Linux. Okay, it's based on the Linux kernel. Now, that was 10 years ago. It's still true that at its base it does have a Linux kernel, but Google has put so much on top of that. I don't even at this point I don't think it's fair to even call it Linux, even though technically in a way it still is. So that's a key point to keep in mind. Now, because it is based on Linux, though, it has been modified significantly by a lot of different developing teams of varying sizes. And so you have Android alternatives. Probably the most popular is what's called Lineage OS. So it's still based on Android, but it's quote unquote de-Googled, or at least it can be de-Googled. There are a couple other ones. There's what's called Calyx OS. There's Graphene OS, which is probably the best of the bunch. And there are a few others, and even companies like Freedom Phone, they claim to have their own like Freedom OS. I think Clearphone might even have put out a claim about doing Clear OS or something like this. But really, a lot of these other projects are more or less, they're either basing it off of Graphene OS or they're basing it off of Lineage OS. Okay, and I understand why they want to do that. They want to do that because they want to have they want to have a smartphone experience that is easy to use and somewhat familiar and to mainstream users, grandma, whoever, and something that at least has the capability of having the apps that just about everybody is used to using, whatever that happens to be, even if it's just like Signal.
Yeah, but a lot of
Telegram.
these apps that you can load it on, but you're loading on the tracking. Well, what's the freaking point?
Exactly.
You got to know what to be able to download.
Yeah, exactly. So, and I have a real issue with like a lot of these, like the idea of de-Googling, I think is absolutely like, it's the right direction. But if you do a little more research on a lot of these different smartphone options that are out there, so like, because it's de-Googled, it won't have the Google Play Store, which is the way that you normally get apps, whatever app that happens to be. Right. So what they'll use instead is they'll use one of two things, or maybe both at the same time, which I think creates complexity that's unnecessary. But they'll use either F-Droid, which is a completely open source independent app repository. Okay, but that is also an app repository that is not going to have the YouTube app. It's not going to have the Facebook app. I mean, it might have like things that could access those, but it's not going to have those specific apps that people are used to. So they'll either use that, which I think F-Droid is great, or they'll use what's called the Aurora Store. And a lot of times they'll even just rebrand the Aurora Store. Because it's open source, they'll rebrand it and give it like its own name. Like I think the Freedom Phone calls it the Patriot app or something, some nonsense name like that. But the problem here is a lot of reasons that people want to get a more privacy-centric phone or a de-Googled phone is they're concerned about censorship. They're concerned that, say, if they want to access, I don't know, some crappy, social media app made by somebody with a bad haircut, that, like it won't be available in the Google Play Store. So they want an alternative where it could still be available. The issue is the Aurora Store is really just accessing the Google Play Store. And so you're not really solving censorship in any way. You're still accessing Google ultimately with that. Sure, you don't have to have it attached to like a Google account, like a Gmail account, but you're still accessing Google with that. The other part of this that's really important to get out there is, and this is where Google was really, really brilliant, and they have sunk their teeth into this much more over the years. Google has what's called Google Mobile Services. Okay, now Google Mobile Services is effectively their cloud that allows you to get, it's not necessarily, I mean, it is where you get apps from and all of that, but here's the real center to Google Mobile Services, which gets shortened as GMS, not GSM. That's a phone protocol, but GMS. Google Mobile Services is what allows you to get notifications. And they have slowly been making more and more apps dependent upon getting notifications.
Well, what, like you got a text
Google
message
services.
or something?
Yeah, well, text and phone calls are the only ones that don't use GMS, because those are based on a more like wider standard. But that's an example. Like, to get a Signal message, you need to have GMS. To get a Telegram message, you need to have GMS.
Now, if I had the option to turn on or off notifications, and I don't turn on notifications, is it still tracking it? Or when I turn on notifications, that is the key to screw me?
If the app is set up to connect to GMS, it's still going to connect to it at some point. Usually when you set like a do not disturb on a phone, it's just not telling you, but it's still sending and receiving.
Right. Okay. Let me ask a question while I'm thinking about
Yeah.
it. When you do, I get a de-Googled phone. You know, even Rob, they're going, oh, yeah, well, you need to communicate and use Signal. Signal's better than, everything else in Signal because Signal. And I go, okay, yeah, but it's still a freaking phone number, and they map out my, pirate network. I mean, how great is that? So then if I have notifications that's on that, just the fact that it has notifications using GMS, Google messaging system, whatever it is, if I, a mobile system, if I'm doing that, I'm already screwed, even with Signal?
Yeah, I mean, you're not necessarily giving away the messages that you're writing, but you're still. My point is, you're still not technically de-Googled, right? you're still accessing Google servers. You're still sending some kind of data, to Google. So that's the key point there. Now, for example, okay, like instead of buying, a Google, an Android phone off the shelf, which will have, stock Android on it, Google's Android. Let's say you go ahead and you put on Lineage OS, or whatever Brax OS, whatever, crap they want to call it. Okay. If you don't put the Google Play Store on there, you can still install apps independently. Like, there's websites you can go to, apkmirror.com. There's varying places where you can get apps. But what you'll instantly notice is that the only time you may get notifications is when you unlock your phone. You won't get them throughout the day. And that's because without connecting to GMS, it doesn't know unless you're accessing the app's specific servers. Now, there's solutions to this. Like, for example, if you download Telegram from the F-Droid app store, it will leave a little notification in your notification bar at the top of your Android phone. Now, that might look annoying, but the reason that notification is there is because the guys who developed the what they call the FOSS, or what they call Telegram FOSS, which is just free open source software. That's all that FOSS means. The guys that developed that, they know about this GMS problem. And so they have the app essentially in the background always be running so that it can receive notifications. Now, this drains the battery a little bit, but that's the price you essentially have to pay just to get notifications on an app.
Come on, man. It seems like the solution is I don't give a crap about notifications.
Well, right. I mean, and that's great, too.
Now, I turn off all my notifications. Are you kidding me? I'd be freaking be notified all the time. Screw that. So this is that's the only thing I got to worry about is I go, nope, don't care about notifications. All of a sudden, I'm more secure. Take it off. Done. Next.
Yeah, I mean, after a fashion, but my point is if we really want to get de-Googled, you
got to get off of Google's GMS. Right.
Yeah, you've got to get off of that GMS, and that's possible. Like Graphene OS, which I mentioned earlier, which is an Android, it's Android-based. Okay, Graphene OS has it completely set up to where there is no access to GMS. You'll see something, and I guarantee you just about every phone that you've been talking about this week on your show uses a service called MicroG. And MicroG is an attempt to get access to that notification server from Google, but, not give away as much identifying information as you can. And it's a great thing. I'm not saying it's a bad thing, but let's be clear here. You're not really de-Googled, at that stage. Graphene OS is about the only only Android compatible system that, would fit the literal mention of the literal meaning of the term de-Googled. So, again, I'm bringing all of this up just to say that, okay, be careful with the marketing language from these people. because A, it's not uncensorable, because most of the time they're using an app store that is just pulling from Google. Also, your notifications, which most people care about. I mean, I'm with you, Ernie. Like, in fact, I'd love to live in a world without notifications. The damn things just drive me nuts, and make me lose my attention span. But most of your ability to get notifications most of the time is coming from accessing Google's servers. So if you think you're not phoning home to the man, as you like to say, Ernie, you're just wrong. You are, pretty much every time. Now, again, like I said, SMS and phone calls, those don't need that, because those work on phones, whether they have Google on them or not. Those work on dumb phones.
Yeah, I'm not feeling any better either, because,
Sure.
I grew up when, the movies were made in the 70s about how AT&T and the whole phone system is freaking tracking, this is because they can. So when they went in, I talked to the representative of technical difficulties, Part D. Okay, so we it's when the battery overcharges, it does the thing and it goes through the thing and safety thing of the power thing, go whatever. All right, so what we were getting into the operating systems and of the different phones, and the main thing. Let me summarize this, so get caught up here, and it's a good time for me to summarize. If you're going to get a de-Googled phone, he's thinking, when you say privacy phone, how private are you when you're, because my thing, I always go, if I can see my screen, they can see my screen. If I'm logging in, keylogger, of whatever, the people that get into trouble the most are the ones that think they're private. Just ask any gangster, and they got their phone from, the CIA kind of deal, or FBI or whatever. But so anything can be hackable. A lot of it's either you hide in plain sight or noise, or it's called sneaker net. You walk over there and talk to somebody without crap on you, and I'll even turn it off doesn't mean anything because you can't take the battery out. I mean, seriously. And then you got, lasers getting the vibration off the leaves standing next to you, and they record whatever. I mean, really need to. We got to do, brain to brain, firewire or something. I mean, whatever.
Yeah, go walk 2 miles in the field naked, and then maybe you'll be all right.
Yeah, well, maybe not. I mean, so it's like a lot of times, you go naked out in the ocean, stand there in the surf and talk. Maybe you might have a chance. Or you put on the cone of silence underwater. Smart. Yeah. So I really am, and when I do these kinds of shows, it's why I'm like, if you're going to be on the list, be on top of the list. It's safer there. The reason is because I'm not looking for privacy as much as I'm looking for public-see. I want the public to see. I want to be able to have all my ones and zeros, where they can't delete them and anybody can access them. And, we know what you said and did. Good. I pay you $20 to listen to my show, Mr. FBI, which, has happened recently. So I didn't pay him either. So I win. But the one thing that I wanted to make sure that we understood, when we're looking at these different phones, a lot of them, instead of saying privacy, Dr. Sovryn's going, that's not really so correct. What you're really looking at when they say de-Googled, okay, maybe de-Googled, but it's not totally de-Googled. So you're talking about the notification. There's some communication that goes when you load up some app. They're all, or most, are using GMS, which is Google Mobile Services, right?
Yep.
So that is what goes ping, check your, first off, I don't need that. If I can stripe that off and the freaking I don't need to know because damn it, I notify, I turn that off anyway. But so you're going, if you get an app from anywhere and you need to know that if they have that, you're kind of not totally de-Googled. The other thing is that when you go, and we didn't talk about this, but one of the segue from the idea that you go to F-Droid, which has all of these are good, not phone home apps. I guess they pinky swear and somebody certifies the whatever.
Something like that.
Then there's another one that I heard. What they do is they have some kind of an app that tricks Google Play into allowing you to download an app from Google Play without having Google Play on your and authorized on your phone. Well, what the hell good is that? I mean, so they.
Well, that's the thing. That's not going to stop the censorship, right? Because if Google Play delists an app, it's done. You're not getting access to it either. Yeah.
Well, my main thing is that if I'm going to go ahead and have, I want to get off of the grid, and then the first thing I do is download Facebook, and what was the freaking point, So right. This is, when we went on this trip and we didn't have our Cox home at Cox.net at our home, and they only give it to you for like a year, and when you don't have an address, and then you're done. So I always had all my email, because I'm a very bad guy, going to be on top of the list, safer there. I had all my stuff would be either forwarded to my Ernest Hancock at Cox.net, like my publisher at freedomsphoenix.com, Captain Mark at whatever the hell, all that kind of stuff. When I have it forwarded there, and I have that and everything else just forwarded to my Gmail account, okay? So it used to be when I go on the road and everything, I can access it anywhere. It was convenient. I know what's going on. Of course they're seeing everything and doing, and I know, and there's Ernie. I know. So I'm going, at some point, there's going to be, well, Ernie was here a minute ago, and now he's gone. When does that happen? Well, it's going to start happening here pretty, damn quickly, because we're getting, de-Googled phones. Then we're doing, we start using different mail services a little bit more than I do now. A little more encryption, a little more. I'll put some, because what's happened, it was so difficult or a pain in the ass, and you got to be a technologist to be able to do this anyway. You get in with all the geeks, and they tell you, and you just, come show me this just button you guys keep talking about. So that's where the grandma just button comes in. So now I went from from PC, Windows to Linux. Great. Love it. Freaking work. Turn it on. Goes work. Yep. All right. The other thing is that when I do my phones, I'm kind of getting the feeling that as I get de-Googled, it's going to be kind of the same kind of transition. You're going to have the same function. You get to do kind of an email, host or app or whatever. You're going to do, some of the stuff that you're familiar with, maybe Signal or something, and then we go ask about, Telegram. We'll get into that a little bit, and then I need a calendar. It doesn't have to be freaking Google everything. So I'm just I don't use Google Drive. I may have one document somebody send me or something. I am totally fine with severing all my email, everything on Google done. It's happened several times anyway. So I'm just going, and we're done. I need to know what my options are for me and for the audience, because we've been focusing on this communication via phone thing. We had some friends, I'll tell you the story. They went out to do some protesting, truckers, convoy going, and whatever. All of a sudden, their AT&T phones they've had around the world with them, roaming all over the end, and they're wanting to send a video and text of Dad, it's done, gone. So the first thing is, really, they shut it down. You go into protest, and they don't like truckers. Well, what happened was it had voice on 3G, it had data on 4G. And they shut down 3G towers, or they shut down that capability all of a sudden. They go, oh, I'm sorry, it doesn't work anymore. You need a new AT&T phone, So I'm going, so there's that. We are so susceptible to their stuff. Then you have phones that they'll have even a double SIM card. You can put two SIM cards and go between two different carriers, or one's the carrier and the other one you can use as your SD card. They got to make that clear. I thought there was like 3 slots. There's really 2. It's a SIM card and or, an SD card. So you go, okay. So if I got that and I'm able to, either just take the SIM card out, change it, or just take it out, and I get Wi-Fi, well, then I can do phone calls and communication and texting and whatever using Wi-Fi, assuming you have some connection somewhere or something. Mm-hmm. So there are a lot of these options, but in there are details of where they're going to get some, And we need to understand how it's working and which operating systems to get, maybe the phone. Because first they say, oh, yeah, the Pixel 3 of Google's Pixel Google phone of Google phone, it's clean, it's good, you can use that one. I'm going, yeah, says you. How the hell would I know? No, really, it's open. I'm going, I'm not convinced if they can. So this is, a concern too. And people that have been talking about building actual from the bottom up privacy phones, well, where do you get the chips? I remember, like Think Penguin, our friend Chris Wade, I got a Think Penguin right here, the second one that I've had. Well, the first one that he did, open source hardware, open source software, none shall pass. But now you can't get this board. And they got the trusted module board, master chip, little squares. You don't know what the hell they do. So it's just, we are so inundated with this system of surveillance and control that I'm not expecting that I'm going to be totally private.
Yeah. Or go ahead if you got more.
Well, I'm just trying to understand that as much as I can, that I'm not helping them. But I'm not going to give out, passwords, on even my secure phone because, screw them, I'm not helping. So what Brian is doing for us is giving us kind of an accurate threat analysis of what's going out there.
Exactly.
What different operating system and phones that we have and what kind of level of security that we can expect. And the biggest problem security is probably you, is that, you're just being stupid. And I want that. Oh, I'll give you a good example. I'm in Mexico and I'm like, my Spanish went to crap over the years. I used to be able to, get by pretty good. Or I would just forget the nouns for different things or verbs or so on. But I go, man, I'm going to need some help. I'm going to download me a translator. Yeah, absolutely. Google Translator. Freaking A, man. They'll sign my crap up. Then you got 15 billion banner ads popping up, pop-ups everywhere, and every time I turn my phone on, well, I deleted that when I got out of Mexico and get that crap off of there. But, it's probably residual of whatever. I'm not feeling this phone as anything special. But I got a Samsung G20, and what happens is I'm looking at this phone. I got this mainly to have power to do a bunch of stuff, but the storage and the capability for using my Mavic Air 2 drone. So I get a de-Googled, phone. Am I going to be able to do my drones? Maybe not, because they want to geoposition, anal probe. You're not allowed to fly until you get permission from the FAA. You're not in the whatever. Because when I was in Manchester, I was wanting, they were doing, you're doing a protest, anti-mask thing or something. The drone wouldn't go more than 10 feet up. Nope. You're in Manchester. You're in the city. You're next to the capital if you're not allowed or something. I don't know what the hell is going on.
Right.
And I'm going, you sons of bitches. So this is where you know how tied you are to location, Google permissions, blah, 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 and all these different drones and applications integrate with that, for their convenience of the man saying you can do it. So this is where we're at. So pick up where you left off and correct any of all the crap I just said wrong.
Sure. No, I think you're on. To be fair, the technology that drones run on, your photo drones and all that, air camera drones and all that, none of that's terribly new. What's new now is that it's less expensive. You don't have to create your own entire infrastructure because you can just piggyback off of what, Google or Apple has done and, and what AT&T and everybody else has done. Right, exactly. So really, a lot of this stuff is only capable because it has become inexpensive. You don't have to invest in the infrastructure to do it because it's already there and you're just piggybacking. So, to be fair on that, but I think the hardware question is a big one. That's one that we really need to address. And the answer is not pretty on two fronts. One is there's just no way you're going to get away from processors out of China. You're just not, you can't. You're not going to get away from them. Okay, maybe you could do South Korea by Samsung, but still, you're just not going to get away from that production level.
What do you mean? You mean the actual hardware?
Yeah, your SoC, the actual processor. The single processor in your well, there's more than one, but your hardware, you're not going to get away from Chinese hardware. It's just that. That's a conceit that we have to make with all of these things.
So what's the solution? There's got to be a law. We need Trump to come in and ban and say and Way is just, surveillance of scumbags of whatever. We got to have a government chip factory of Tesla Dojo chip or something. What?
Well, I'll get into the solution, but I mean, because the second part of the problem is that we are in a scenario right now with major supply chain issues. So even the solutions that exist are incredibly hard to get your hands on. And that's a major problem with any of the recommendations that we're bringing up. I mean, look, even what ClearPhone, as far as I can tell, what ClearPhone puts out there, what Freedom Phone puts out there, what a lot of these, independent projects, which I think have, like the right mindset. I applaud what they're trying to do, but they're all coming from like, what is it? Umadigi, I think is the name of the company out of Shenzhen. Like I could tell you the model of the phone that they have, and you can go and buy it for $100 off of Alibaba. Damn. Or AliExpress, it doesn't have to cost you $500. So, and I'm not necessarily knocking anybody. I'm just saying, be clear. Like if you think you're being patriotic or something along those lines and buying these phones, no, everybody around the planet.
Yeah, Patriot phones that has
China.
America flag cover and it came from Shenzhen.
Yeah, exactly.
Right.
Exactly. So, so there's that. So as long as we accept that conceit that we're just like, and the hardware can still be open hardware, it's just still going to come from, the factories of Foxconn or whatever, and we just like, that's just the thing that's unavoidable. So I want to make that abundantly clear, but then let's talk about, there's the hardware. We've got that conceit out of the way. Let's talk about some of the actual options that you have. Frankly, and it really depends on like, what does a person want? Like, are they wanting the government to not see it all? Are they wanting just like Google not to see or the tech giants not to see? Because the answers can be very different within all of that. But I guess where we can ultimately lead to, because every critique that I've made is true of just about everything. I mean, again, there's people doing great stuff. Like there's a guy, Jamin Biconic. He's selling like all these different products under the Ghost label. Like he calls, like there's the Ghost phone, which is essentially a Pixel 3, a Google Pixel 3 that's opened up and he put Calyx OS on it and all this. And it's great. Like getting away from Google and kind of like what you were saying earlier, Ernie. I mean, the best thing you can do is make it expensive for them, for they, them, those. Just make it expensive. Like you're not going to get that level of perfection. Okay. So this is true. I have yet to run into an Android phone project, no matter what OS that they're using. I've yet to run in, and I'm the guy, to be clear, I'm the guy that literally wrote the security manual for Android. Okay. Or at least the open available one, to most. And that's my dark Android book. Okay. So it's not like I don't know, I know far too deeply how Android operates. I mean, it's been a major part of my life for frankly the past decade. But I haven't seen an Android-based project yet that gets me super. I mean, their hearts are in the right place, but that gets me like super excited, saying, "Oh yeah, this is secure, this is private, or this is censorship resistant." I don't believe it. One of the key things I think that any smartphone needs to have to even be considered to be secure, private, or censorship resistant is hardware switches for every single radio. And when I say radio, I mean LTE, Bluetooth, Wi-Fi, whatever. It needs to have a physical hard switch that cuts the wire between the antenna and the signal.
Yeah, not a soft switch for the microphone that the FBI can just turn on. Okay.
Exactly. Right.
Okay.
And we know that the FBI and Google can do that.
When you say LTE, I see that on the phone a lot. Now, what does that stand for?
Oh boy. Now, you ask me now. I don't
mean, well, what
recall
is it? I mean, is it the phone connection?
Yeah. It's just it's the band. It's the frequency used, which is 4G LTE. There actually used to be other types of 4G. There used to be 4G WiMAX. Used to be others. LTE is kind of before 5G was the latest standard. It's no different than say like Wi-Fi A, Wi-Fi B.
Got it. It's
Wi-Fi
just a
G,
communication protocol.
Exactly. It's a protocol.
Thing.
Yeah.
All right. Got it.
Yep. So you want to have the phone that you're getting, and actually McAfee was going in this direction where he put on the back the hard switches that killed all of those radios, Bluetooth, whatever. And again, when you're actually cutting the wire, it's over. It doesn't matter what the FBI does. They can't access or read what's coming in, via Bluetooth or anything along those lines. Okay. Or LTE or Wi-Fi or whatever. So that's pretty essential. And there are phones out there that are doing this. There are phones out there that have, this as an option. Okay. And I think that that's pretty essential. And there are Android phones that are even doing it as well. So I like that. But the problem is, like, what most of the projects that get any press, most of them are not doing it at all. So I suppose the best thing for me to do is to really cut to the chase, because I'm essentially saying that most Android projects aren't really worthwhile. Now, the other reason that I'm not saying they're worthwhile comes down to what you brought up earlier, Ernie, which I think is very salient, about how AT&T in the past year just killed 3G. Now, this is creating problems far beyond smartphones, because there are home security systems, Internet of Things devices, all of which essentially just died overnight because 3G got wiped out.
Was all of 3G AT&T, or are you just talking AT&T connected devices?
Yeah, well, just AT&T's use of 3G. And I mean, this is where things get confusing, because I know, like, there's companies who want to like offer you a better cell phone service that perhaps isn't Verizon, where they're handing all of your metadata over to the government.
They wouldn't do that. That'd be wrong.
Yeah, right. Most of those are just piggybacking off of T-Mobile and AT&T's. They're not lines, they're towers, but I always call them lines, just because I'm old. And so they're all piggybacking off of that, which doesn't, make me feel better about any of it. But yeah, so like when a company said, oh yeah, you can independently access our, 3G network. No, their 3G network is AT&T, and they're just an MVNO. I mean, they're just like paying off AT&T to get use of it. So, so not all 3G is dead, as far as I know, but with AT&T, which probably has the largest span of it, certainly around the world would be a major part of it. That's just off. So what do you do then? And this is a real problem, because you could spend, again, like we were talking about earlier. All right, you want to get, whatever phone, and it costs $1,000, or to get two of them, it's $2,600 landed. Even that was Clearphone, right? Like Clear Cellular just piggybacks off of AT&T and T-Mobile. So 3G goes, or whatever, Wi-Fi signal, or whatever cellular signal you're using. If AT&T says no, it doesn't matter if you're not paying AT&T, you're done, you're screwed. So I like to think, very long term, especially when you're putting down, in the triple digits, or if you're looking at like $500. So the phone that I am going to recommend, especially if, you're really wanting to like get into having an independent community and all this other stuff, but still be able to call grandma. Linux phones are, in my opinion, they are finally here.
Really?
They are finally capable. You have a couple of them. I mean, they're still kind of considered developer, but I've been nothing but impressed with how far they've come. They all of them know they have a long road to go. No one's making any kind of crazy promises with these companies. I
got promised a decade ago I was going to have my laptop and my PC and my tablet and my phone and Linux base and all going to interface and done, and that was a long time ago. Yeah. So, well, I mean, we're now getting to the point where these things, where they are practical to buy. Again, the only issue we're running into now is supply chain. Like, only so many of these things can get made, that fit within reason. So that's sort of our main issue at this stage. It's not so much that the technology isn't there. It's just, we do run, like it could take you months to get your hands on one of these after you order one. My personal favorite, there's more than one, but my personal favorite is the PinePhone. It's by a company called Pine64, which they've made like competing boards to the Raspberry Pi, and these kinds of projects. They have a lot of very fun projects, but they're dead serious about the Linux phone, and they're really pushing hard with it. And I think they're making the right moves. They have the hardware switches on there that are going to kill those radios the instant you do. Not only that, because Pine64 has such a massive developer community around it, including myself, like I contribute as well, because it has that massive developer community, and the hardware is open. They also have, again, supply chain issues are a problem, but one of our favorite projects, yours and mine, Ernie, is the low-Ra T-Beam, right? Meshtastic. Mm-hmm. So they have a board that you can connect to the phone that will allow you to access the low-Ra bands. This opens up, again, when we speak about the issue that, AT&T is going to kill 3G, or they're going to kill this, or they're going to kill that. If you're in a smaller community,
especially, or if you have like some kind of, one point of contact, say with the big bad internet, you could just switch to LoRa, and your device is still going to work for you.
As what? As
a
localized mesh intranet, going into, segue and it's connecting some way to the internet.
Well, it could do both, depending upon what access points you have. If you have an access point to the internet, you could use that. It'd probably be pretty slow with LoRa, but the possibility is there.
Okay. Let's do it. I'm going to spend some time. All right, let's do it because I want to make sure we get some time on that before we run out of time. All right.
Sure.
This is what we did. There was the ability to have you get these little, I don't know, it looked like a Arduino on a teeny money motherboard with an antenna. I mean, that's what it looked like. And what it was, they call it LoRa, which is what? Low power or long range radio. What does that stand for?
Yeah, it's low power radio.
Okay, low power radio.
Yeah.
So you got low power radio. It's a radio device that will transmit, I guess, ones and zeros that can be turned into audio, video, data, whatever. So I'm going, okay. I will like this because I know, Dr. Sovryn's got skills and he has a team and a lot of the guys there just kind of think it's cool and whatever. So I said, they're only $27 a piece. I tell you what, I will send you 5 of these if you can get them kind of meshed, working and doing, demonstrate and be and kind of, man, what do I got to do? And, I can send them, we'll look at them, whatever. So I send them to him and, he's like, all right, bench testing. Out here we can connect them all. All right? Yep. They work. And I'm going, all right, this is the use case. In a small community, being, say, Weir, where Jay is and some of the guys and Becker's out there and doing, so you got, a few miles, maybe 5 miles around or so on. Or we have friends up in on the Columbia River in Washington State, with Canada. And they have a small community there. And it's, maybe 20 miles away, 10 miles away. You have these different farms and they, we got our livestock and we got our gardens and we got our, little cabins and this and that. And we're cool. And they got their little thing and they got this little thing over there. The one thing they don't have is they got backup on energy. They got backup on food. They got a backup on water. They got a backup on, all kinds of stuff except communications. When they go in and the AT&T 3G went off and phone, you don't have phone anymore. Life sucks for you. And they go, well, that's bullshit. Well, then you can do what's called packet radio, which is ham radio that you can do encrypted, texting from the 90s.
Send code over.
Yeah, the people were like, oh, well, you got to have a license to do that. I go, when I need to do it, the license ain't going to matter, okay? I don't care. So, a lot of these guys get like, well, you're doing it wrong. Can I or can I not buy that hardware? Well, yeah. If I push this button, does it go? Well, yeah. But you didn't get a permission slip. Oh, well, shit, So I'm just like, shut up. So that's one method. But when you're doing the ham radio thing, other than that and texting, that's a whole nother thing. I still want to get more information on that. They were very clandestine about that. But God forbid you encrypt it. The man don't like that. The FCC, you're using ham radio and encrypted stuff. You're so freaking not allowed because that is, you get like real private communication. They know you're doing it, but they can't do anything about it. So when you're doing ham radio and you're in a small community or your mountain cabin and you got, line of sight or over the valley or over the ridge or whatever, you have friends or neighbors or families and you got to sit there and monitor the radio. Like CBs were like this all the time. It'd be like, I remember as a kid, my dad, hey, so you guys there, answer the freaking, whatever, and, heat the hot tub or something. But, whatever, you got to be there listening to it, all right? Well, I don't want to have to do that. So this LoRa, I need to be able to send a warning, an invitation. I need help on the whatever, come, your dinner's ready, whatever the hell it is. That day ones and zeros goes, and it goes to something, Arduino, Raspberry Pi, Linux phone, okay?
Yeah.
That where I can get a text message, I can do it, and I can, check it and look at it, not 24/7. I got my eyeballs on it, and I don't have to get a notification. So I go and I look at it, and I go, okay, here's the message. This is what's happening tonight and whatever, and I check my, phone that I got walking around me on the farm or something. If you can do that, and that's what I'm hoping for, along with all our IPFS and all our other Google phone, all that other crap, what I'm looking for, can you have an intranet like JackNet? When we go to the Jackalope Freedom Festival, there's no coverage there. Then you have, like, I remember PorkFest, a decade ago, these kids walk, well, I don't got a cell cover. What am I going to do? Well, you might talk to somebody. How about that, Yeah, man. So people would interface, and there wouldn't be Blueface anymore. Well, now it's starting to get to where internet are piping in Starlink and meshing out to the, whatever. Well, Derek Slopey went up in the mountains in Arizona, and he took a feed off of a tower and then, broadcast it down. Then you get some guys doing that. Then they do Briar, and they got like a little intranet thing and called, JackNet or something like that. So what I'm looking for is that there is, outside the internet, don't care. If I have these LoRa devices that I can put a little solar, panel on top of a pine tree and a freaking backup battery of just set it up and put it in a 3D printed case of won't get wet and snow if I don't give a crap, put it up there, and I got my own little repeater thing, and I can do that every how far? I don't know. I'm hoping I can get a mile or two out of it because I got these little, Baofeng, radios that we've been using, and they work pretty good. You can get up, a mile or more, sometimes. Well, I'm going, okay, if I can get to where I go from my home using my phone, the interface, I text, and it goes through the LoRa, blip, 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 and starts bouncing around farmhouses or cabins or friends in a small community, everybody gets it. It's kind of its own little, Telegram-type group or something like that. When I got money, we will make this happen. Oh, my God, who does that first? Brian, that's the use case. Tell me where you are now, what you need to test, what's the future, and I might be a Linux phone guy. So tell me what's up.
Yeah. Well, I wanted to add in one quick thing on the Linux phone thing as well, particularly like with the PinePhone, though really any Linux phone should be able to do this because Linux is natively a desktop operating system. You can actually get a dock that you can plug the phone into. I know Samsung can do this too with Android, but you can get a dock where you can plug it in and it will go to your monitor, keyboard, mouse, and all that. And so you're not only carrying your phone with you, you're also carrying your computer with you that just has to dock somewhere at any given moment. And I think that's an awesome option, especially when we're talking about taking advantage of LoRa, because then you have the device that's going to do the sending, and the receiving, with you at all times. It's in your pocket, as you need it. And you don't have to run to a specific station to be able to access, to send a text via LoRa or something like that.
So, I mean, you have to have your USB 3-point, docking thing to plug into somebody's computer, you mean?
You need the dock the computer is going to be the phone, but you need the dock to be able to plug in just the monitor, keyboard, and mouse. Okay. But everything else gets done on the phone. And I think that's a wonderful thing. I think that's great. Okay. Again, especially because with LoRa, so where we're at right now with LoRa, just to, kind of bring this in, it's getting more than two devices to repeat, the same message and testing out the distance. Now, LoRa can actually operate at different frequencies. And the lower you go, like the better range you're going to get. So it's no different than Wi-Fi, where you have 5 gigahertz and 2.4 gigahertz. 2.4 gigahertz has greater range, but it's not as powerful as, say, 5 gigahertz, and so it's not as fast, say. So, again, it can depend upon what your use case is for this.
My use case is text. I am not wanting to send pictures, videos of. I'm not. It's
Bingo.
Like the British are freaking coming. Okay. I need to the watch out, the tornado and oh my God, your ex-girlfriend's coming over, run. I mean something,
Yeah, so that's totally possible. I've sent a text between these devices. Okay. Now, not a Linux phone. I didn't test it with that, but it was with the Raspberry Pi and between other things. So the I'm not going to say the apps. I don't like where the apps are at is that are capable of doing this even on Linux. But our best chance of getting the apps that do it exactly the way we want is on Linux. So for it to, for you to already have a Linux phone, is a great thing because you're not, if you already bought the Linux phone, you're not buying any extra hardware necessarily other than the LoRa adapter, perhaps.
Well, how much are these Linux phones?
So the PinePhone Pro, which is their new one, that one runs around 500. But again, you're also buying a Linux computer with this. It's something that can last you, and with the low rock capabilities, it's not something where you have to worry in 3 years. Well, what if they turn off 4G? Right. Yeah. So I think.
I mean, what's the capability? It's got, blah blah blah, phone, selfie phone, SD card slot. I mean, what are we looking at?
Yeah, all that. It has like the PinePhone Pro specifically has like 128 gig onboard storage, which is great. I mean, sure, it'd be awesome if it's a terabyte, but whatever. You can easily add on. You can plug in a hard drive. That's not hard. It has USB-C. It has a micro SD card slot that can do up to 2 terabytes whenever we get those kind of SD cards. 6-inch screen. I mean, just about everything you'd expect from a modern smartphone.
I have a terabyte SD card for the Pirate Box. Are you freaking kidding me?
There you go. Pop that right into your Linux phone.
That was I remember back in the day. Oh my God, he has 2 gig on these 4 computers sitting in the whatever. Back in early '90s, I'm going, ooh, you the man. And I'm going, I get a terabyte on a freaking
the size of your thumbnail. It's insane.
Seriously.
Yeah, no, I agree. So yeah, it has everything that you would expect for a modern smartphone. Now, to be clear all right, let me finish up with the low RA. With the low RA, it's again testing the repeater and testing distance. That's where we're at. And that as well, like the software that interacts with it can be a whole hell of a lot better. Like a lot of work can be done there, but it is possible right now. So I know when I show up on Declare Your Independence, I need to talk about what can be done right now, not what can be done in 2 years or 5 years or 20. So I'm making sure.
I'm willing to wait next week.
Yeah, right.
The main thing is that I'm hoping that by this summer, because I'm feeling it. I feel the time. Time is a ticking.
Right.
And that was the whole point of Freedom's Phoenix. The rebirth of freedom. Freedom's Phoenix from the ashes of Lady Liberty's torch. Well, I'm feeling the flames, man. It's getting, there's some ashes, and it kind of started. I'm literally looking at it when all of the Antifa Portland crap, and I'm going, yep, this is kind of what I was talking about. Here we go. So by this summer, I would think that, we're going to a freaking war. I mean, they're threatening World War III, and I'm not getting all freaked out, but I'm like, there's worse things than mushroom clouds, to be honest. Mushroom clouds in your mind of being hopeless and helpless, and and the man's going to save you crap. I give you all kinds of problems. But if I could have, certainly by this summer, and it could be a good demo at Jackalope the first weekend in August, or at our friends up in Washington, or at PorkFest in June, that would be awesome. You get this by PorkFest, and it'll spread across the country, and hell, they'd be all buying, just like those radios that we got. I remember when everybody bought, sold out of those years ago, just to have them, So when
COVID started, those Baofangs were gone. For example, like they just disappeared.
They work well. I have them, I don't use them all the time, but I mean, when I need it, I need it. So
yeah, I always keep one around. Yep.
This is the kids go ATV, and what I'm going to pull that out. All right, this is a real. This isn't a toy walkie-talkie. Okay.
Yeah, let me bring up something quick, Ernie. I mean, you made a great point about say with what's happening in Ukraine. Everybody got all hot and bothered about or excited, I guess, about Elon Musk bringing in Starlink satellites.
Yeah, you're
enslaved. To provide internet. which is nonsense. All he did was he brought in a better targeting system for Russia's missiles. Because again, anytime you're accessing a satellite like that's a beacon, and that's a beacon that modern weapon systems can track. It was foolish. You essentially send up a huge beacon where every independent communication network was. Going with something, and I bring this up because it's a great case of why you want LoRa, why you want your local network, local mesh network, because it's a network that doesn't turn into a targeting system. Because it's not just shooting up to satellites and whatever else. It's something that's all being done terrestrially. That's wonderful. So anyway, just adding that in.
Well, give me a use case scenario. Let's say a good example. PorkFest is a good example.
Sure.
You have top of the hill, family, whatever area, tent area, way up at the top there, up there. You go way to the back where the RVs are, back in the, the back row way back there. You go to the pavilion and you go to Agora Alley. Okay, so this is, if I was to walk all of those, that'd be a good, probably a quarter mile from one to another, but, to walk the perimeter, maybe a half mile, something like that. So it's a good little test area. I mean, it's not like villages up. It'd be nice if you had one in Lancaster also and at the, Santa Village or some crap like that. But, I mean, to demonstrate LoRa and the mesh networking, that would be a really good example of what happens at Jackalope. Because it's kind of, it's not as, it's like out in the forest. I mean, so it's not like you got this section and that road and this, camp spot. It's not like that. It's out in the forest. But it's kind of that, about that size area. So I'm going, okay, if I had 5 of these LoRa devices, you mesh them up, I would interface with one of them, and the signal would be broadcast on all of them. That would end up where, how?
Yes. So, I mean, like that repeater ability is one of the things that I'm working on. But it would be sent through that LoRa signal, and it would bounce around to, like, they would essentially it would be spray and pray, but whatever other LoRa antenna could pick it up would then send it elsewhere. And like the software itself, the texting app, whatever that happens to be, would have, a device identifier. So it would know what device to land on.
So it's like a phone number or an address, or somebody supplied you. This is my ID.
It's like a Mac ID on a computer.
Okay, that's what I was wondering. Because what I need is I need to be able to send a message.
Yep.
Run! I send a message, and then it be received on my other Linux phone, whatever the hell. And I look at it, and there I got it, and I can see who it came from. This is what you're talking about, right?
Yeah, and that's exactly how it would work. It's just there would be that identifier, and there's no need for it to be anywhere near as like personable as a as a telephone or anything like that. But it's just an identifier, for the device.
Okay. How long are we looking at, for a demo? Can you make it by PorcFest?
Oh boy, I will try. In the development world, it's very hard to make promises. But we're certainly working on it.
Yeah, no, I'm telling you, man. Once you get this going, you can pimp it. Maybe we can even. Yeah. I mean, I'm not all about monetization, but I am about. If you can make some money, I don't give a crap. But my problem is that when everybody goes for monetization, that becomes such a primary focus and takes up so much time they never get anything done.
Yeah, exactly. And I'm glad you brought that up. I want to comment on that quickly because most of the projects that I see as far as these de-Googled phones and everything else, there are a lot of promises that are being made of what's going to come in the very near future. Right now, when you're spending the price tag that they ask for, because I've already told you what model phone they are and what they actually cost, you're kind of funding that future development. Now, that's not necessarily a bad thing. But what I am suggesting here is stuff that already exists, and you can put money into communities that are already making what we want. And, we don't have to necessarily wait. Like, yes, I want to make I want there to be a better app and a better infrastructure for like LoRa radios to communicate with each other. Sure. But technically it all works right now, technically. I'm just kind of operating on things that make a little more sense for use cases that we talk about. So this isn't nothing being talked about here is, okay, this will be ready, 10 years down the line, or this will be ready next year. No. Like, this is all stuff that can be done right now, and can be purchased, say right now, supply chain issues being what they are. Because you might have a hard time getting your hands on some of these things, but it's not because they don't exist. So that's a really key thing to understand, is that when you're paying like a lot of these high price tags, a lot of times you are funding the future development of these things. I'm not saying that that's necessarily bad, but if you're looking for the here and now, well, here's the here and now.
Well, do you have the team, the tech guys to actually, can help and do this, or you need me to recruit people, or, what do you need? I want to get this done. This needs to be done by this summer. PorcFest is a good time. That's end of June. I'm like, damn, that's what, 1, 2, 3, 4. I mean, hell, we're 4 months away. I mean, damn.
Yeah. When it's at the stage of where like development help is needed, I'm going to make the clarion call, and I know you'll be answering and helping out, with finding the right people, Ernie. So that's, but again, it's not there where I think like the development side needs to be there. Again, it's more testing the capabilities at this point.
The capabilities of the hardware.
Right.
Well, I mean, is it like, I'll give you an example. I remember when there was, we were doing our radio show, and there was a supporter, a libertarian, and he was a super geek, IBM, blah, blah, blah guy in Tucson. Well, when I first started doing radio in 2003, a libertarian on freaking major media market on the morning show, when the hell has that ever happened,
Yeah, right.
So he was we were putting it on the internet, and we're streaming that you could, log into the radio station, and MP3, what the hell's that? That kind of thing. So what he would do is you could listen to the radio show online, and he went to Radio Shack and got a little FM transmitter, wired a wire antenna between a couple of trees in his backyard, and he was getting a mile or two range his neighborhood and marketing kind of whatever. And I'm going, all right. How? Why were you doing it? What was the capability? It was the antenna. So I'm going to these LoRa's, they may have a distance challenge, but I'm going, if we're going to be putting them up and we're getting serious about this, crap, man, I'll run me an antenna. Is that one of the things that can be done, or are we talking about it's at a certain wavelength that doesn't matter, and there's no place to plug in a big antenna on your phone? I mean, what are we looking at?
Well, probably. I mean, distance is one of the things that needs to be tested, and at that stage, then there may be a point where, there's a certain custom, say, hardware that where you could have like a base station of sorts that has greater range than these little boards, that we're testing with. But that would be something for a little further in the future. But the idea right now is to have these $20 devices that anybody could get their hands on and just create that network. I mean, and
that
look,
would be
possible.
sick. That would be like unfair to the man. At least make him $40 or something.
Yeah, right. I mean, for example, I mean, just to show that, like, look, this is totally possible. Like Amazon, while they're not using what's technically LoRa, they've already done this in Los Angeles. With only 300 devices, they are able to have all of their, whatever Amazon-specific devices they had, they can communicate with each other across the entire city of Los Angeles with only 300 devices. And so, like, that's, again, this concept of mesh networking and doing it over large areas, it's not theoretical. It's being done right now. But now it's just, we got to get it into, the hands of the people.
Well, you start by giving it in the hands of Sovryn Tech, and then you freaking get it to me people. Okay,
That's
so
right.
This is how close what is it that you need to develop? Just some bench testing, some field testing, have time? I mean, what are you looking at?
Yeah, it's a matter of time. It's a matter of time at this stage. As far as making like prettier apps and then getting involved in, something that would like really make a lot of sense today on a Linux phone, if we wanted to go that route. Certainly there's some hardware that needs to be acquired for that. Again, it's hardware.
Do you
that
need
exists.
an app writer?
Yeah, eventually that'll become a part of that. Yes. And there'll need to be a team that has to test things. Like one of the reasons
I have these guys over the years in mind. It's one guy I got in mind. He tries to keep a really low profile. He's the one that did the original Silver Calculator and our original apps, for the show and Freeman's Phoenix and everything. Until Google said I had to do it on. Never mind, screw you.
Right.
But but he works for the government. He's in one of the big agencies of doing the tech. And this is kind of his freedom thing. And I tap on him. I go, "Yeah, you really want to screw the man? You want to help with it? We need an app for this." And and he would work with you. I mean, he's worked with Derek before and these guys. So so I'm thinking, I go, if you have a cool project like this, go save the planet, he'd be all over this kind of crap. This is what he's waiting on. Ernie, how come you haven't called me yet? I mean, that kind of thing. So you just got to let me know what you need.
You bet. Yeah. I mean, because we'll need security testers because, I mean, like one of the reasons I don't get excited about Bluetooth projects or Bluetooth mesh networking projects, I used to, but I don't anymore because it's just been proven to be such an insecure standard. Like, I mean, on every device I can, I turn off Bluetooth as fast as I can. So, you know, getting into LoRa and then, you know, making sure that that's, you know, everything, the way the apps are communicating over that standard and all that, making sure the apps are, you know, like, yeah, there's going to be a lot of security testing to get into.
Okay, so before we get too far off, and before you gotta go,
sure.
we got on the LoRa thing because it would interface, you think, more easily with the Linux phone.
Correct.
You know, and that, you know, your power is going to come from this Linux phone. Now, the Linux phone, where are we on that?
So that's at a very usable stage. Like, as in you can buy one, you can pop in your SIM card. I mean, you know, we didn't get into it. Like there's SIM card options to discuss. Like I wanted to bring up stealth.link, but that we can do that another time. So yeah, the Linux phone is ready. The only thing it doesn't necessarily have are perhaps all of the apps that people want. The fortunate thing is that, you know, because that's where a lot of people have not wanted to get on board with a third option in the smartphone ecosystem. Everybody just wants Apple and Google because all the apps work. Well, I mean, Google just last week reported, I think it's up like 200%, the use of what are called progressive web apps. What this is the service that you use, it's just in the website. It's in the mobile website. And so anything you want to do on your phone is in the mobile website. Okay. And so like the concern that, well, you know, a third, like a Linux phone, there aren't going to be enough apps for that. You don't need apps.
I know it's going to be a phone, right? It's going to like I call and somebody answers, right?
Yeah. I mean,
can I do text with it?
Yes.
Can I get
the Linux
some
phone
kind of like
has
a calendar or, you know?
Yeah, it'll have all that.
Well, then what the hell? I don't give a crap about other shit. How many freaking apps you got on your phone?
I don't ask that question.
God, you know, you guys, I've done page after page if I delete. You know, I'm you know, it's amazing to me, you know, how much stop. You're killing me. I just need a freaking it dials. I'd like to be able to text. I'd like to be able to send files or data or, you know, like video or, you know, a picture or something.
All of these things are capable right now. You know, and like with the PinePhone specifically, it's using what's called Manjaro Linux, a version of that, which is based on Arch Linux, which to many people's mind is like the gold standard of Linux distro.
So what are you going to tell me? I can't load Facebook or something?
Well, I mean, on the web browser you could, like, but yeah. So my point is that right. I'm with you. But you know, my point is that really all you need something that can send SMS. You need something that can make phone calls. And it can do both of those. And then you just need a web browser, you know, because once you have the web browser, you've got access to all kinds of things. But it's not only that. Again, you have access to many years worth of full on, you know, Linux applications. And then, you know, again, it can also be your computer at the same time. Just plug it into the monitor.
You get to where it can run the Pirate Box application for IPFS and I get a mesh network on it and I'll pay $1 billion for it.
Sure. Well, I think the best chance for any of that stuff happening is on a traditional Linux distro, not on Android.
Okay, when you say distro, you geeks use all these words. What does distro mean?
Oh, so Linux is just a kernel, right? Like
Linux, kernel, shit. As long as it's got a kernel. What the hell's a kernel?
He's the guy that sells chicken. No, I'm kidding.
Right.
Yeah. So Linux is like when you experience, there's a lot of different flavors of Linux, and like with Windows is an operating system. What the operating system can do is totally based on what's coded within what's called the kernel, which is, you know, essentially what the central processing unit, you know, will access and send off. So all capabilities come within the kernel and what's written into the kernel. I know that's not like super helpful, but but point being, so distros is you have a lot of different types of Linux. Like you have, you know, you have Ubuntu, you have Fedora, you have Arch Linux, and they call these distros, which is just a shorthand for distribution. And basically, because the Linux kernel is open source, you can create your own operating system to tailor and, you know, fit your own needs, which is a great and wonderful thing, and that's why Linux is so popular. So anyway, that's the trying to do the short version of that. So,
all right. So I get a Linux phone.
Yeah.
One of the things about getting a Linux device is that 2 years later it still runs Linux and a bunch of other stuff. Where if you get, AT&T, 3G is not working anymore, or it doesn't do this, or it doesn't do that, and you can't access, and it's too slow, or whatever. And, my Linux computer, my Think Penguin computer, I'm just like, God, I love this thing. Because I open the box, I put in the password, it's mine, and hell, I didn't even change the password. I don't care. I just, I'm on top of the list. So I just but it works. It doesn't crash all the time. I mean, it's not perfect, but man, my Windows, where's that baseball bat hit any key, So
yeah, absolutely.
I get a Linux phone. Mm-hmm. I'm looking at it can interface with the phone system and however much brain damage that, surveillance there is. But I can, get apps that can do a lot of the stuff that I want to do, and I don't care. And you feel that you can be pretty safe and use Signal on it?
Well, Signal would be an issue because Signal is
very
specific. Yeah, well, there's that. I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of Signal in the first place. Telegram, you would certainly be able to do. I'm not going to claim Telegram is secure, and Telegram has its own issues. They banned RT today. But
wow.
Yeah, that was actually a pretty nasty bit of business there. Even when you independently install Telegram, they still banned it. So anyway, well, that's a whole other story.
Wow.
But, you do run into, you have options on Linux that are secure communications.
Yeah, put that story up, Donna. Telegram banned RT. That's definitely Freedom's Phoenix news break. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. Because that message has to get out there. It's such an important thing. Okay, sure, I'm right with you. I'm right there with anybody. Screw Russia, but anything being done against Russia right now, pay close attention to that because that can be done to anybody else.
Yeah. No, you think you're, any step away from Russia getting banned and you're a dissident? How far you think that's from you? I mean, come on.
Yeah, you have a financial and cyber warfare dress rehearsal going on right now.
Yeah.
With this whole situation. And again, take notes, everybody, because it's just a matter of time where that gets pointed
You think
at
deplatforming and demonetizing and all that kind of crap was bad? Wait till we get to a war. I keep saying that. Well, of course,
you're right.
Or Acapulco, they go, we're already at war. It's been a cyber war, or this war, that. Here we go. So this is why we're doing this kind of stuff, is so that it can't be censored. IPFS, it can't be censored. We have the mesh network, it can't be stopped. It can't. I need can't. Can't, because if they can, they are.
Yes. Yeah, so I put no faith in, certainly when it comes to smartphones, I put no faith in the duopoly of Apple and Google, or Apple and Android. And I think, our only option is to go with open source hardware and completely open source software, even at the operating system level. And Linux Phone is really the only major response for that right now.
All right. So if I was to focus on a Linux Phone, working, interfacing with being the computer and communication device with a LoRa mesh network, and oh my God, you make it a pirate box also. That would be awesome, because we have the pirate box that Thomas and the guys are working on, Pirate Box Project. That's a Linux, little bitty main containerized, put it on your freaking phone and boom.
Right.
You do that, score for the humanity.
Yeah.
All right, what do you need? What kind of help you need? You said, I heard it. Everybody watch, I got video. You said, yep. You shook your head. I don't want to hear your whining crap. What do you need?
Well, we're going to have to sidebar on that, Ernie. But I will definitely be giving you the list, and I know you know the people.
All right, we're going to sidebar. We're done.
Yeah.
I know he's got to go, and I want to get this done. All right. Hey, thanks, man. Hold on a second. Let's go ahead and go out here. But I'm just like, this is so freaking, are you kidding me? We need to have this done not later. And I'm so excited about, the possibilities that we have, that I want to, what do you need? Oh, well, to save the planet's going to cost me $2,200.13. I'm going, well, shit, that's all you had to say. You guys go going, what the hell? Well, if I had some of these with boom, you got 5. Now what? Well, a Linux phone. How many do you need? Boom. Now what? Yeah, I'm going to eliminate all your freaking now whats, and then what? Okay? Don't even shake your head and say yeah and ready and say all this crap. You didn't think I wasn't going to freaking be on your ass, So we get the guys going. So all right. So that's what's coming, and I'm gonna keep the pressure on the button for maybe Pork Fest, and then the different summer festivals will demonstrate. And who's speaking doesn't matter. We're demonstrating LoRa Tech. Woohoo! All right, hold on, Brian. I'll be right back.
All right.